Hey everybody, today I am actually at a place called Ritchie Woods in Fishers, Indiana, which is barely just outside of the north part of Indianapolis on what is actually a really beautiful day. And when you're taking a look at this video, you might think, oh, it's a phenomenal, awesome winter day, but you might be surprised. So we're gonna talk about how really living in Indianapolis or any of the surrounding metro is sometimes a little unpredictable. So we'll get into that in this video, so stay tuned. Hey everybody, I'm Jason Compton with the Compton Home Group. Welcome back to the channel. If you want to know everything there is to know about living in Indianapolis or a place where I'm at today with Fishers, Indiana, then make sure you hit that subscribe button. Also tap that little bell so you're notified every time we do a new video. Now we have people reaching out to us from all over the country with questions about what it's like to live in Indianapolis, and we're talking all kinds of questions. So essentially anything that you can possibly think of that applies to Indianapolis or any of the surrounding metro. Make sure you reach out to us any ways you know how. We'll always have your back with those questions, and we'll certainly have your back when it comes time for you to make your move to Indianapolis or any of the surrounding metro. So I am in Ritchie Woods, which actually is a super cool little nature preserve just north of Indianapolis. I'm talking barely north. So 96th Street runs east and west across the north side of Indianapolis, and that's generally the northern border of Indianapolis. So if you cross to the north of that, you're either in Fishers usually, or you're in Carmel, and which is a little bit to the west of where I'm standing right now. But I'm here today because it's actually really quite beautiful. And actually I'm in the parking lot of Ritchie Woods, and if you were to go back this direction, got somebody pulling in here now, you get into some trails and into the woods actually, and they even have a prairie if you go over this way just to the south that you can walk through as well, and a pond. And I mean, it's just actually a really cool place, and it's actually quite large, to be honest with you, but it's beautiful on a day like today. And you might think, oh yeah, it's a beautiful January or December day here at Ritchie Woods, but it is not. This is a super strange kind of day. When this video is being shot, you might not be watching it on this particular day or this particular time of year, but it is April 21st. So at this point in time, we've actually had tons of days in the 50s, 60s, and we've had days in the 70s at this point. We are well into spring. We're a month into spring. The spring equinox was back in late March, around March 20th, 21st. I can't remember which day it was in this particular year, but it always falls right around then. And as we go through March, the weather starts to get a little bit better, and once we get into April, beginning of April, it starts to get a whole lot better. In fact, we've probably, at least personally, mowed the grass at my place 3 or 4 times. And I know people that have mowed at least that many times because things are growing. Flowers are blooming, leaves are coming out on the trees, the underbrush in the woods definitely starting to green up and really start to take off. But obviously it is snowy. So, you know, if you just look here behind me, I mean, it's beautiful. Kind of getting some glare from the sun. But we got some snow last night. We got probably almost 3 inches of snow, amazingly. So I don't think anybody was really expecting this. We knew it was supposed to get colder, but strangely, the day before this, it was about 70 degrees. And in fact, one of my kids had a baseball game. We had a baseball game in the evening. It was beautiful. Started to get a little cool once the game got towards the end. And then lo and behold, the next day, a whole lot colder. We knew that was coming. And then that evening it started to snow. This is something that happens across the Midwest. Indiana is not entirely unique to something like this. We aren't the only ones that got this snow last night. Basically from here north, you definitely got it. If you got into southern Indiana, you didn't get any. You had a little bit of rain, and it was certainly cold and kind of miserable, but this happens in the spring in the Midwest, and especially Indiana. You can be going along thinking that the spring is really starting to take hold and things are getting more solid, and then you get smacked in the face with something like this. Now this isn't going to last long. By the time we get into next week, it's already going to be back in the upper 70s, even crack 80, amazingly. And in fact, this snow here today, even though it's not going to be an incredibly warm day, it's going to be in the 40s. It will be sunny, and this snow is just going to be gone almost immediately. The roads, it never stuck to the roads. We've had too much warm weather at this point to where the roads have gotten warm enough. They didn't need to be treated. There was no plowing. It was just didn't stick at all. So it wasn't treacherous driving, but it was a wet snow, and it stuck to the trees, like you can see right here behind me, really well, and it did stick to the grass and things like that. So it made things really pretty, but it doesn't last long. So the whole point is that living in the Midwest, and especially here in Indiana, things for the most part are predictable. We know what it's like in winter. We know what it's like in spring, summer, and fall, but you can hit little periods where it's unpredictable. So April 21st, you see a lot of places, a lot of stores like Lowe's, Home Depot, Menards, and other hardware stores and landscaping places. They're starting to put their plants out for the spring and spring planting. But the rule generally is for anybody living in the Midwest, especially right here in the center of Indiana and Indianapolis, is that you're not safe to plant anything except for trees and really, really big plants for that matter. But things like flowers, things that are very, very sensitive until Mother's Day. Once we hit Mother's Day, you can probably bet that we're not going to get another dose of something like this for the rest of the year until we get to the next winter. You're gonna be pretty safe. So all your annuals, things like that, they're probably not gonna do all that well in April unless we get lucky and we don't have a snapback to something like this. But we usually do. So while the weather and the climate and all that can be a little bit unpredictable, maybe day to day, truly though, we can really predict something like this happening, honestly. So while living in Indianapolis, it could have its unpredictable parts. It's predictable in that it is unpredictable at times. So across the Midwest, this is just something, if you're planning on moving to this particular area, it's something that's gonna happen. So not necessarily where you have to bring your snow shovels out or put your chains on your tires or anything like that, but it's just a quick snapback to remind you of where we came from in the winter. So it's not the only thing I would say that's completely unpredictable maybe about living in a place like Indianapolis, but it's certainly one of those things. So if you have any questions at all about unpredictability in Indianapolis or snow in Indianapolis, the weather in Indianapolis, the climate, anything that remotely similar to this at all, then make sure you reach out any way that you know how. And until the next one, we'll see you later.